Blessings. I wanted to share with you yesterday my encounter with God. Yesterday, I was going through a very sorrowful moment, and I was going through a moment where I was so emotional that I really needed to reach God. I really needed to talk to God. And the best place I knew where to speak with God and to have that place of transparency and openness was the beach. That happens to be our spot, our place of open communication, my place where I can openly just bare my all. That particular day, it was raining. It was raining extremely hard. It was dark outside. I just finished working, and at that moment I was just like, God, what's next? What do I do? What do we do here? And as I got to the beach, I remember coming for a few minutes, but God was saying, I need more of you. I need more time from you, and reminding me of other things that I have prioritized. And I said, okay, God, I hear you. So while I was at the beach, I sat in the sand, and to the left of me, the rain was heavier on one side, and to the right of me, the rain was heavier on one side. And the area that I was sitting in, by then, the waves had crashed on the sand, so the sand was actually sitting higher than the water. But the particular area that I was sitting in, happened to not get as much rain. It was drizzling, and the waves weren't crashing in that particular area. And I remember observing that. So during that time, God was just revealing to me the birds that were still on the beach during the storm. God was reminding me that, look at how the birds are continuing with their day-to-day life, with no concern of the storm, with no concern of the rain, with no worries of what's to come. They're still here continuing, and they're still here pushing. So as God began to reveal that to me, I was such in awe and amazement watching the birds fly in the rain, and I was just captivated by it. And God was giving me a word at that moment. God was like, look at where I placed you in the midst of the storm. You're sitting in an area on the beach. And in that area on the beach, the waves are coming, but you're not submerged, or nor are the waves crashing over you. And God was like, in the midst of the storm, while you're in it, I've covered you. Although you're experiencing the storm, you're not experiencing the full amount in other areas. So God said, I want you to look at the faith of the birds. And God said, it's a reflection in how we should move in life. No matter what storm that we're going through, no matter what situation, you press through. He said, you look at the birds, you see the birds are going with their day-to-day activity like nothing is going on. And God says, I need you to push through in the storm the same way. So during that moment, I was closing my eyes and worshiping, and I was listening to music to kind of just bask in the presence of God. And as I was listening to the music, it was already dark outside. The clouds had, already been dark, and the sky was dark. And I remember closing my eyes, but the best way I can explain it, how when you're in the dark and you close your eyes, you know that you're in the dark because you don't see a reflection of light trying to creep in your eyelid. So as my eyes were closed, it was like I felt a ray of light trying to peek through my eye, but when I opened it, it was still dark outside. So as I sat down in the presence of God on the sand, I just began to feel heat running through my back. And I'm like, is the sun out? And I opened my eyes and I looked behind me, and there was no sun, but I was feeling the heat on my neck and on my back. And God was telling me, it's me that is with you. It's my presence I'm holding you through this situation, and all is well. You will overcome and you will survive this very thing that you're going through. And in this season, I'm stretching you to another level of faith, because you've elevated and passed the last season of faith. But now I'm taking you to another level that's going to take you into greater territory. So you have to be stretched. So, I began to weep, and I was in tears because I felt God holding me in that moment. I felt God's presence. I felt his comfort. I felt him just holding me during this time. I was feeling sorrow, and God was reminding me. God was like, I need you to stretch your faith like these birds. You see how these birds are moving in the storm with no regard to what's going on. Just continue to dwell in me and worship me through this storm. So as I begin to close my eyes and just worship and just dwell in the presence of God and appreciate everything about God and who he is, I just worship and just continue to just acknowledge how he's been in my life. And as I did that, all of a sudden I opened up my eyes, and the dark clouds were no longer existent. The sun was peeking outside, and it was like no storm had ever existed. And God said, this is how your life is with me. Continue to dwell in me in the midst of the storm. And God says, when the storm passes, you will never even realize the storm had even passed or existed, because you have dwelled in my presence to where you didn't have to focus on what was going on in the midst of the storm. And that is the word that I want to share with you all. There are many of us going through things, and we're so focused more on the storm, and instead of being focused on God, that is distracting us. But if you continue to focus on God and dwell in him in the midst of the storm will pass, and you will never even know it existed, because the joy that he's getting ready to release into your life from the promises that he said he's getting ready to release will be revealed. And when those things come, you will forget that that storm came. You will no longer remember the former things, because the promise is here. May this word encourage you. May it strengthen you, and may it upkeep you. Be blessed.